Section 23 of the Common Reader. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Bruce Peary. The Common Reader by Virginia Woolf. Outlines 4. Archbishop Thomson. The origin of Archbishop Thomson was obscure. His great-uncle may reasonably be supposed to have been an ornament to the middle classes. His aunt married a gentleman who was present at the murder of Gustavus III of Sweden, and his father met his death at the age of 87 by treading on a cat in the early hours of the morning. The physical vigor which this anecdote implies was combined, in the archbishop, with powers of intellect which promised success in whatever profession he adopted. At Oxford, it seemed likely that he would devote himself to philosophy or science. While reading for his degree, he found time to write the Outlines of the Laws of Thought, which immediately became a recognized textbook for Oxford classes. But though poetry, philosophy, medicine, and the law held out their temptations, he put such thoughts aside, or never entertained them, having made up his mind from the first to dedicate himself to divine service. The measure of his success in the more exalted sphere is attested by the following facts. Ordained deacon in 1842 at the age of 23, he became dean and bursar of Queen's College, Oxford, in 1845, provost in 1855, bishop of Gloucester and Bristol in 1861, and archbishop of York in 1862. Thus, at the early age of 43, he stood next in rank to the Archbishop of Canterbury himself, and it was commonly, though erroneously, expected that he would in the end attain to that dignity also. It is a matter of temperament and belief whether you read this list with respect or with boredom, whether you look upon an archbishop's hat as a crown or as an extinguisher. If, like the present reviewer, you are ready to hold the simple faith that the outer order corresponds to the inner, that a vicar is a good man, a canon a better man, and an archbishop the best man of all, you will find the study of the archbishop's life one of extreme fascination. He has turned aside from poetry and philosophy and law, and specialized in virtue. He has dedicated himself to the service of the divine. His spiritual proficiency has been such that he has developed from deacon to dean, from dean to bishop, and from bishop to archbishop in the short space of 20 years. As there are only 2 archbishops in the whole of England, the inference seems to be that he is the second best man in England. His hat is the proof of it. Even in a material sense, his hat was one of the largest. It was larger than Mr. Gladstone's, larger than Thackeray's, larger than Dickens. It was, in fact, so his hatter told him, and we are inclined to agree, an 8 full. Yet he began much as other men begin. He struck an undergraduate in a fit of temper, and was rusticated. He wrote a textbook of logic, and rode a very good oar. But after he was ordained, his diary shows that the specializing process had begun. He thought a great deal about the state of his soul, about the monstrous tumor of simony, about church reform, and about the meaning of Christianity. Self-renunciation, he came to the conclusion, is the foundation of Christian religion and Christian morals. The highest wisdom is that which can enforce and cultivate this self-renunciation. Hence, against cousin, I hold that religion is higher far than philosophy. There is one mention of chemists and capillarity, but science and philosophy were, even at this early stage, in danger of being crowded out. Soon the diary takes a different tone. He seems, says his biographer, to have had no time for committing his thoughts to paper. He records his engagements only, and he dines out almost every night. Sir Henry Taylor, whom he met at one of these parties, described him as simple, solid, good, capable, and pleasing. Perhaps it was his solidity, combined with his eminently scientific turn of mind, his blandness as well as his bulk, that impressed some of these great people with the confidence that in him the Church had found a very necessary champion. His brawny logic and massive frame seemed to fit him to grapple with a task that taxed the strongest, how, that is, to reconcile the scientific discoveries of the age with religion, and even prove them some of its strongest witnesses for the truth. If anyone could do this, Thomson could. His practical ability, unhampered by any mystical or dreaming tendency, had already proved itself in the conduct of the business affairs of his college. From bishop he became almost instantly archbishop, and in becoming archbishop he became primate of England, governor of the Charterhouse and King's College, London, patron of 120 livings, with the archdeaconries of York, Cleveland, and the East Riding in his gift, and the canonries and prebends in York Minster. Bishop Thorpe itself was an enormous palace. He was immediately faced by the knotty question of whether to buy all the furniture, much of it only poor stuff, or to furnish the house anew, which would cost a fortune. Moreover, there were 7 cows in the park, but these perhaps were counterbalanced by 9 children in the nursery. Then the Prince and Princess of Wales came to stay, and the Archbishop took upon himself the task of furnishing the princess's apartments. He went up to London and bought 8 moderator lamps, 2 Spanish figures holding candles, and reminded himself of the necessity of buying soap for Princess. But meanwhile far more serious matters claimed every ounce of his strength. Already he had been exhorted to wield the sure lance of your brawny logic against the sophistries of the authors of essays and reviews, and had responded in a work called Aids to Faith. Near at hand, the town of Sheffield, with its large population of imperfectly educated working men, was a breeding ground of skepticism and discontent. The Archbishop made it his special charge. He was fond of watching the rolling of armor plate, and constantly addressed meetings of working men. Now, what are these nihilisms and socialisms and communisms and Fenianisms and secret societies? What do they all mean? He asked. Selfishness, he replied, and assertion of one class against the rest is at the bottom of them all. There was a law of nature, he said, by which wages went up and wages went down. You must accept the declivity as well as the ascent. If we could only get people to learn that, then things would go on a great deal better and smoother. And the working men of Sheffield responded by giving him 500 pieces of cutlery mounted in sterling silver. But presumably there were a certain number of knives among the spoons and the forks. Bishop Colenso, however, was far more troublesome than the working men of Sheffield, and the ritualists vexed him so persistently that even his vast strength felt the strain. The questions which were referred to him for decision were peculiarly fitted to tease and annoy even a man of his bulk and his blandness. Shall a drunkard found dead in a ditch, or a burglar who has fallen through a skylight, be given the benefit of the burial service? He was asked. The question of lighted candles was most difficult. The wearing of colored stoles and the administration of the mixed chalice taxed him considerably. And finally there was the Reverend John Purchas, who, dressed in cope, alb, beretta, and stole crosswise, lit candles and extinguished them for no special reason, filled a vessel with black powder and rubbed it into the foreheads of his congregation, and hung over the holy table a figure, image, or stuffed skin of a dove in a flying attitude. The Archbishop's temper, usually so positive and imperturbable, was gravely ruffled. "Will there ever come a time when it will be thought a crime to have striven to keep the Church of England as representing the common sense of the nation?" he asked. "I suppose it may, but I shall not see it. I have gone through a good deal, but I do not repent of having done my best." If for a moment the Archbishop himself could ask such a question, we must confess to a state of complete bewilderment. What has become of our superlatively good man? He is harassed and cumbered, spends his time settling questions about stuffed pigeons and colored petticoats, writes over 80 letters before breakfast sometimes, scarcely has time to run over to Paris and buy his daughter a bonnet, and in the end has to ask himself whether one of these days his conduct will not be considered a crime. Was it a crime? And if so, was it his fault? Did he not start out in the belief that Christianity had something to do with renunciation, and was not entirely a matter of common sense? If honors and obligations, pomps and possessions, accumulated and encrusted him, how, being an archbishop, could he refuse to accept them? Princesses must have their soap, palaces must have their furniture, children must have their cows, and, pathetic though it seems, he never completely lost his interest in science. He wore a pedometer. He was one of the first to use a camera. He believed in the future of the typewriter, and in his last years he tried to mend a broken clock. He was a delightful father, too. He wrote witty, terse, sensible letters. His good stories were much to the point, and he died in harness. Certainly he was a very able man, but if we insist upon goodness, is it easy, is it possible, for a good man to be an archbishop? End of section 23.